We are very excited to be talking about ACT reading. And at this point in our preparation, we want to be focusing on the method, and then what we're going to do is help you out with the timing as you get more comfortable with the approach that is recommended to raise your score. Starting with the method itself, we want to know exactly what our objective is, and it actually changes depending on what type of passage you're looking at. So when you're thinking about this section, keep in mind that you don't have to do all the passages in order. You get to pick which ones you want to do first. This week we're focusing on prose fiction and natural science, and a lot of students either save prose fiction for last or they like to do it first. Same with natural science. Those are a little bit different than the other types of passages, which include social studies and humanities. Whichever passage you're tackling though, you're going to take notes. You don't want to try to memorize everything in the passage, and by summarizing each paragraph or each couple of paragraphs, depending on what passage type, you are not only saving yourself a ton of time, but also you're actually getting ready to answer the questions. So when you're reading the passage, you're not just reading it for the sake of reading it, you're actually doing some summarizing and analysis before you even get to the questions. It's going to save you a bunch of time, it's going to increase your accuracy, and it's going to reduce your stress. One thing to keep in mind when you're reading that passage, in addition to summarizing, is you're trying to figure out what the author's tone and purpose is, and especially with social studies, humanities, and natural sciences, there are other opinions in each passage besides the author's. So keeping straight who said what is really important because there are trap answers that are built for students who have trouble keeping straight who said what. Before you look at any of the answer choices, you have to make a prediction. You want to save yourself time and energy, and making that prediction makes a big difference. When you predict your answer, you're looking for something that's not too extreme, and you're looking for something that is either directly stated in the passage or supported by the passage. And it has to fit with the author's tone and purpose. When you think about those things, it makes such a huge difference in your approach, and it really makes a difference in terms of being able to spot the correct answer. When you're matching your prediction to the answer choices, don't abandon your prediction. You did all the hard work already. Don't fall into traps. And we're going to be exploring traps as we get closer to test day. So right now we're focusing on the method. We're talking about the notes you're taking. We're talking about prediction. And then as we get closer to test day, we're going to really help you out with your timing and avoiding those traps. Knowing your passage types is essential, and as I stated before, you can do them in any order you want to. So know which types you are really good at, which types you are medium at, and which types you know you need a lot of help in. They are so different across the board in terms of what they talk about, the structure and the format. You're going to find that as you look through these types of passages, you are going to be experiencing different levels of performance. So make sure you keep track of that. Some students really enjoy one passage or another. Even if you don't have a favorite, there's going to be one or two that you're just simply more accurate at to begin with. We're going to increase your accuracy overall, but we want to know which one is the one you should be doing first. Always do the easiest one first. For prose fiction, these are really unique because there's no thesis. So if you're planning on tackling this one first, it's going to be because you're really good at it and you're okay with there not being a thesis. In addition, you're going to have to keep track of characters and their feelings, and there are very few relevant details. You're not going to see names, dates, people, places. There isn't going to be a strong intro and conclusion, and you're not going to have supporting body paragraphs. It's just not the way these are written. So you're going to keep straight who's related to whom, who's friends with whom, what the author is trying to convey, and also keep in mind prose fiction passages. Every passage has 10 questions that goes along with it. Prose fiction passages oftentimes have a lot of inference questions, and those are the types of questions that can be really challenging. There aren't usually a lot of detail questions in which they just ask you to locate something in the passage. They want you to analyze what's being talked about. We have a sample passage, and the point of looking at this passage is to really hone in, meaning focus in on the characters involved. There are kind of 3 characters. So there are 2 human characters, and then there is a doll that the little girl is friends with. So it's her little doll that she carries around with her. So the doll itself, of course, is not a living creature, but it winds up representing a friend for this little girl. So as you're reading, don't rule out things like pets, really treasured objects. You're not going to count them as distinct characters per se, but you do want to recognize that that can be a relationship. So what you're going to do first is read these first 2 paragraphs. You can pause the video so you can do that. And then write down your summary of those 2 paragraphs on your paper, and then check what we put down with what you wrote. So now that you've read it and written, if you haven't written something on paper, now's the time. We want you to recognize that the narrator is very shy, and as I mentioned, the doll is a friend, little girl. That's all you need. If they ask for a specific line reference, you can go back to it. You don't need to memorize. We're looking for overarching themes. We're looking for a summary. We're not looking for really, really specific details. Go ahead and read the 3rd paragraph. Pause the video. Write down what you found in the 3rd paragraph. Now that you've read the 3rd paragraph, we are introduced to the second human character. We have the shy narrator, and we have the godmother, who is stern and church-going. And this is from the perspective of her goddaughter. So here we have paragraphs 4 and 5. 4 is super, super short. Go ahead and read paragraphs 4 and 5. You can pause the video. Now that you've read paragraphs 4 and 5, so we have sort of another character. The character is no longer alive, and this is the narrator. Her name is Esther, Esther's mom. And it's important to note that the tone remains constant so far. In prose fiction passages, it won't always remain constant. But for this particular character, there's a lot of sadness. And so we're exploring where the sadness comes from, how these relationships play into how this little girl feels. And we want to continue that thread. We want to see how that author is conveying this information to us. Go ahead and read just paragraph 6, which is up at the top right here. Now check to see what you wrote down with what we're putting up here. Her birthday was never celebrated. So now you're going to go ahead and read paragraph 7, which is dinner was over. Now that you've read paragraph 7, we're getting into some really interesting information about how the godmother treats the little girl. So go ahead and read 8, 9, and 10. Paragraphs 7 through 10 are an interchange or a conversation between the godmother and the little girl. What we need to understand is how the little girl feels and how the godmother feels. So Esther feels she should have never been born, and the godmother has anger towards the mother. That's going to leave at least some sort of impact, if not a scar. So an emotional scar. So we're seeing where this sadness comes from, and we need to keep this in mind when we look at answer choices. We want answer choices to convey the sadness that this poor little girl has, and how the treatment of her godmother toward her really affects a lot of her life, at least in that time period, and most likely going forward. We just have 2 paragraphs left. Go ahead and read just paragraph 11. Paragraph 11 really shows how the character is relying on the doll to make her feel better. So even though the doll is an inanimate object, it represents a friend for her. Go ahead and read the very final paragraph. Now we have a conclusion, and in terms of tone, nothing changed. It's still very, very sad. Now that we have read that very sad passage, we actually can celebrate when we get answers correct, and we're going to do that by predicting. So we have our passage map right there. Taking a look at it, we really captured what the author's trying to convey. We have a good sense of the narrator, and now we're going to put it to good use. We have, according to the passage, Esther only remembers. When it says according to the passage, it means that we will find support in the passage. So our prediction for number 1 is right down there. In paragraph 3, I was brought up from my earliest childhood remembrance by my godmother. Match it to an answer choice. Answer choice D will earn you a raw score point. We have another according to the passage. In paragraph 11, I went up to my room and crept to bed and laid my doll's cheek against mine, wet with tears, and holding that solitary friend upon my bosom, cried myself to sleep. It's very sad. Her only friend and confidant. Now, answer choice H is what we call a distortion. It could be true, like a sister to her, but we don't want to go too far beyond the scope of the passage. The author's trying to convey the fact that Esther feels very alone. So having it be her only friend and confidant is a much better conveyance of what the author's trying to tell us, rather than could be like a sister to her. But really, we want to know the loneliness and that it's reflected in the correct answer. We have our third question. They point us right to paragraph 10. So here is paragraph 10. It's the last part of paragraph 10, and this is what the godmother is telling her. Now, the important part here, and I can change the color so that you can see the highlight for this one. But her face did not relent. So the godmother does say, I have forgiven her, but the fact that her face did not relent means to ease up or to stop. So if she's scowling and she said, but I've forgiven her, and she stops scowling, then perhaps that's true. But she's scowling and she says, I've forgiven her. Well, gee, that was really convincing. So it seems that the godmother has not forgiven the mother for whatever the mother happened to have done. So continues to resent. To resent someone needs to have very bad feelings towards that person. Final question. Another according to the passage. So it does say according to the passage, but we really are looking to make an inference here. We know that prose fiction oftentimes has inference questions. So our prediction for question number 4 is in paragraph 2. So we're looking for something that conveys that the character is shy, never dared to open her heart to anyone else other than her doll, she's saying. So find that very sad answer choice. Answer choice G. So we're happy that we got correct answers, and it really goes back to the passage map. So looking at our passage map, and I can put it in green. Green for go get the points. We are looking at how this character is describing her life, at least this part in her life. And we know that we're going to get more points when we understand those relationships. Now, if you're really good at this, absolutely do prose fiction first. It is at the very beginning of the section. But if this is a really challenging one for you, then save it. Save it till the end when you're already getting towards when they call time's up, or at the very least the 5-minute left mark, and use that to your advantage. So prose fiction really does require practice, and you will find that the more you practice, the easier it is for you to look at these passages, understand the characters, the feelings, and even though there's no thesis, understand what the author is trying to say. Our next passage for strategic focus is not the next one in line. The next one in any section, it's prose fiction and then social studies, so whatever practice test you're taking, it always goes in that order. But natural sciences is very much like prose fiction in that it's unique. you're going to find that social studies and humanities are super straightforward, and they have the intro, conclusion, they have body paragraphs in the middle. It is very well laid out. Natural sciences oftentimes will have a thesis and it will have a conclusion, but there are a lot of unfamiliar terms. They're very technical, and the topics they pick are not necessarily going to be something that you have ever heard of before. The one that we're going to look at today, though, is going to be a topic that most likely you've heard a little bit about. You are going to focus on summarizing the main idea of the paragraph. There are going to be a lot of terms. There are going to be a lot of dates, names. You are looking for keywords, and you're looking for the overall structure. Now, you could go through and make really detailed notes. You don't have enough time. And it's very frustrating if you make all those perfect notes and then they never ask anything about it. So we're going for a great passage map, and then we're going to use that passage map to answer questions. We can't spend too much time, and the approach is actually going to save you a bunch of time, and you're going to be able to get lots of points. So starting with paragraph 1. Go ahead and read paragraph 1. So for paragraph 1, this is really awesome. All you need for paragraph 1 is the fact that the ozone layer is decreasing. That's it. That's all. If you need to know between 12 and 45 kilometers, you can reread it. They'll give you line references. So make sure that you are looking just main idea. Each paragraph, main idea, main idea, main idea, all the way through. Get through that passage in a timely fashion and then tackle those questions. Go ahead and read paragraph 2. Paragraph 2, very little ozone in the layer. Done. Go ahead and read paragraph 3. Paragraph 3, done. You're really just looking for the overall main idea, and then they're going to point you to where to go when you get to the questions. Paragraph 4. Now for all of these paragraphs, you can be circling and underlining things that you think they may ask about, but do not forget to put an actual note next to each paragraph. Write it down on your paper. Get in the habit of writing down those small notes. They don't take very long, and they are extremely valuable. So variations in the ozone, that's all you need for paragraph 4. And your notes may not be exactly like the ones that I'm putting up here, but as long as you're capturing something very similar and you're not writing too much, that's really something you want to avoid, then you are going to be set for test day. This is a really big paragraph. Go ahead and read that paragraph. For paragraph 5, check to see if you have the idea that holes in the layer are because of the chlorofluorocarbons. We're ready for paragraph 6. It's a really small paragraph. Paragraph 6 is the CFC industry. Paragraph 7, health versus economic interests. And again, you should be pausing the video to read each paragraph. It'd be nice if I was just there next to you on test day and just writing down the notes, but you have to do it yourself. Okay, paragraph 8, ready, set, go. Paragraph 8, efforts to limit. Paragraph 9. Paragraph 9 is all about how they actually have a really long lifespan. So it does take 10 years to reach the ozone, so it means that even if we were, let's say we were to stop everything or greatly reduce, it would take a little while for it to repair. And by a little while, I mean like a lot of while for it to be completely better. But even small improvements would take about 10 years. Okay, final paragraph. Final paragraph, options for fixing the problem. Done. So we have a thesis, the ozone layer is decreasing, and the conclusion is there are options for fixing the problem. In between, we had a lot of information, and what we need to do is use the question stems, the part without the answer choices, to guide our predictions. Question number 1. This one's an awesome one because you can actually go back to the passage and figure out exactly where it said. So if you were circling dates, scan for dates And you're going to see in paragraph 5, it says, however, although the October minimum remained constant until 1979, the total ozone content over the pole was steadily diminishing until in 1985, public opinion was finally roused by reports. So roused means to be excited by. So 1985. Be careful not to pick 1979. They're telling us it was 1985 that the public finally said, oh my goodness, this is bad. We need to do something about this. This one's an interesting one. You can't really predict in the way that you would predict other ones because it's an accept question. It's very helpful to actually circle the word accept. I know it's in really big letters, but it's very easy to forget that that's what the question's asking. So if you look back at paragraphs 4 and 5, you have, for paragraph 4, the fluctuations appeared to result from the natural phenomena of wind effects and temperature change. That's H and J are gone because they contribute to changes. They're not depleting it necessarily the way that CFCs are, but they do affect it. And then here's an interesting one. In paragraph 5, it says the culprits, meaning the people responsible or the things responsible for the whole, had already been identified as being supersonic aircraft, such as the Concorde, although these have now been exonerated. So they personified supersonic aircraft. It's not like we put them on trial or anything, but exonerated means to relieve of guilt. So if an inmate is exonerated, it means that they're found not guilty and then set free. So the supersonic aircraft, they are not the culprit. So that is actually the answer. Another thing too is you wouldn't even have to look for that. Once you notice that wind and temperature were in the passage and affect the ozone, you could actually get rid of H and J. And if you've been reading the passage, you know CFCs are responsible as well. So that would leave just answer choice F. So we're going to be talking about technique as we get closer to test day and ways to save yourself time. So if you want to look at paragraph 5, you will find that the answer is F, but you also want to think, how can I be as conservative with my time as possible? So either way, you're going to find the right answer. We want to really use technique to get through it a little bit faster. Now we have the main point of the 6th paragraph. Now here's where your passage map really comes in handy. In addition to helping you figure out what the author's talking about, go right to your passage map. We wrote down for our passage map, paragraph 6, size of the CFC industry. So which answer choice matches that? Highlight the numbers of CFCs produced every year? Maybe. Criticize is very extreme. Criticize the countries responsible? Probably not. Indicate the economic interest at stake. Does the size of the CFC industry help us do that? Or help the author do that? Probably, but let's check D. List the most important members. Most important members? That doesn't sound right. Answer choice C. Our final question. Based on the information in the passage, which of the following would most likely result if all production of CFCs were to end today? You know where that's located? Paragraph 9. Do we want to reread all of paragraph 9? Even if we really wanted to, because it was the best paragraph we'd ever written, thinking it wasn't, you want to use your passage map again. So your passage map says CFCs have long lifespan, take 10 years to reach ozone. Okay, so scientists would have to replace the quantities of ozone already lost. I did not hear about that in the passage, didn't know that was possible. The ozone layer would only return to normal levels after 75 years. In the paragraph, it does say they have a lifespan of 75 to 400 years, but I don't think that's what they meant, that it would return to normal after 75 years. They were trying to tell us they last a long time. Scientists would have to destroy all chlorine molecules in the atmosphere. Not in paragraph 9, and the benefits would not be experienced for another 10 years. True story, because if it takes them 10 years to reach the ozone, that's the delay that is part of the process. Because it travels, it takes a while for it to actually show impact. So 10 years span, that's exactly what we're looking for. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to actually practice these, and you're not worrying about timing right now. You're worrying about technique. Get your technique down, and then we'll talk about timing, and we'll talk about more strategy when it comes to eliminating answer choices. You need to have a really strong foundation. So focus on prose fiction and natural sciences. When you do that, yes, it's 18 points, which is half of 36, but you're actually going to be more than halfway done, because social studies and humanities are the same approach. And after you've done prose fiction and natural sciences, they're going to be a breeze. So tackle these now. We're very strategic about which ones we want you to do when. So do these now, and that's going to make a big difference for you. In terms of options to complete your mission, if you prefer to work independently, that is absolutely fine. We have plenty of students who really prefer to be doing things on their own. So Grokkit Solo Mode is your study plan tab. You click on the study plan tab, and it's actually right here, you can see it. So you have your practice tab, study plan tab, video courses, group practice, tutoring, skill data history. Your study plan tab's laid out really, really nicely, and I have 2 screenshots here for a very specific reason. Our study plan tab goes in the order of the section itself on the test. So the first 2 tabs here are prose fiction. So tackle prose fiction, 1, 2 right there. And then the last 2 tabs, 1, 2 right there, are natural sciences. So this is what you need to do for this week. You need to practice enough prose fiction and natural sciences so that you feel comfortable with them and you're starting to increase your accuracy. Your foundation is really important. That's if you want to do it on your own. If you prefer to work with people, no problem. Go to the group practice page. You could actually create your own, and make sure you label it though so that you can let other people know. Or you can, if you wanted to do a solo game, the study plan tab's a lot easier. You could do a solo game by creating your own practice session. But really, we're looking for you to do either the study plan tab or join in one of the games. So you have prose fiction, all levels welcome, and natural sciences, all levels welcome. So we have them at set times. But if you want to create your own, something that looks exactly the same, but with a different schedule, that's absolutely fine. So if you have any questions about how to use that practice tab, you can click on one of the links that are showing up on your screen. I put together videos so that you can see how to do that on Grokkit. The study plan tab is super straightforward, but if you're looking at how to do the study plan tab, you can click on the link on your screen now. And if you're looking how to make your own group game, you can click on the link that's on your screen now. And as always, with anything that you're doing, make sure you're checking your progress. So make sure you know what your skill data tab says as you're moving through these exercises. And don't forget to check out your history tab. So there are blog posts available for you. There are helpful videos available for you. We want to make sure that everything you need is easily laid out. Now, if you prefer to use the Red Book, you absolutely can. There's no reason that you can't do this prep program completely on your own if you choose not to utilize Grokkit. That's absolutely fine. What you need to do though is you need to complete questions 1 through 10 and 31 through 40. So that is prose fiction 1 through 10, 31 through 40 is natural sciences, and you need to do it in 3 separate practice tests. So that's a total of